Hey, everybody, this is Bob Cargill, and this is Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, episode 213. Yes, episode 213. I am recording from my home office on Thursday, August 6th, 2026. I'm in Sudbury, Massachusetts, and I'm talking to Frank Kalman, and Frank is in Franklin.
Right.
Welcome, Frank.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Frank, I'm psyched. You're someone that I discovered. I really feel I did discover you about 4 or 5 months ago, and I saw you on Facebook writing about food, and I looked you up on LinkedIn, and you're a content manager by day, a strategist, a creator, a writer, but you're bundling all that up into a food blog, and you've gotten a lot of attention, and I noticed, particularly because I'm from Franklin, but also from a business perspective, because I am a writer myself. I'm a content creator, a blogger, a professor of marketing, social media, and business. And I asked you, would you be a guest speaker in my class? And I asked you if you'd talk on my podcast. And here we are, we're achieving one of those two goals. Frank, I just am so impressed with everything you've been doing, and I feel lucky to have you. No, I mean it. You got talent, and you're a regular guy, and you got a sense of humor. Again, without me stealing your thunder, this is about you. I want you to know that. I told you this is going to spotlight on you. Frank, tell us about, if you can, in a nutshell, your journey up until now, and then I got about a cajillion other questions to ask after this first one. Take it away.
I mean, I guess I could sit here and talk about everything as like this scripted path that followed one after another, but I guess I don't know if it went that way. You know, I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm from Chicago originally, the northern suburbs, town called Glenview, which is if you're familiar with like Chicago geography, the North Shore is kind of the posh, Tony, hoity-toity suburbs. If you've seen the movie Mean Girls, that was loosely based off what going to high school is like in that area. So it's very affluent part of the Chicago area. And, I went to college in 2005, went to Indiana University, big state school next door. Really no direction. I didn't really put much thought in high school into like what my career was going to be. I was a big music guy. So I played ice hockey, and I played the drums very aggressively in bands and all sorts of performing scenarios in high school. And that was kind of my thing. But when I got to college, can't fit a drum set in a dorm room. So that was out. I wasn't going to major in music, even though I felt like I could have. Just didn't seem practical where I came from. Everybody was kind of going on to be a lawyer or a businessman or, some high-ranking government job. And so
I get it. Yep.
It didn't seem to be like what people did where I came from, was like be a musician. So I went to college. I tried business, taking all the prereqs for the business school at IU, which is very prestigious. And I got mono my freshman year, which was kind of a stumbling block. I failed an accounting class.
Oh, man, that's frustrating.
In order to pursue the business track, I would have had to retake that course. And so I guess I was just lazy. I was like, you know what? I don't really want to do that. I'm just not going to do business. And so I ended up settling into...
Maybe a blessing in disguise, Frank.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's kind of ironic, or not ironic, but yeah, I'm doing a lot of business things nowadays, but I just didn't go to business school. And so I ended up studying like history, because it seemed like a major where you could do whatever with. And it was kind of writing intensive. And I was sort of like casually interested in writing. I never really thought of it as a career at that point. And then the truth of the matter is I got to the end of college in 2009 with no plan. The economy was a total disaster. All of my friends had their job offers rescinded. I never had one. I went back home to Glenview in the suburbs after graduating from college with a job lined up to be a lifeguard at a country club. And I wasn't even qualified to do that. I couldn't swim.
I'm glad I wasn't one of those swimmers, Frank.
Yeah, right. The only reason I got it was my buddy was like the head lifeguard, and he just needed a warm body to add to his staff. And so I did that for my summer, and then on a whim, I'm like, oh, I like to write. Maybe I'll apply to journalism school to get my master's, which, by the way, Nobody needs a master's degree to be a writer or a journalist. It was basically the economy's so bad that I need to do something to take up time while I wait for opportunities to materialize. So I don't know how, but I
That's
got,
a nice way of describing
yeah, I mean, that,
college.
well, at that point, that was kind of the idea was like, I'm not going to get a job with a history BA right now in this economy. So I went and applied to my alma mater, Indiana, which I got into, which I figured I would end up back at. But I shockingly got into Northwestern's Medill School, which is very highly regarded
I
for
have heard.
journalism. And I was very impressed with that. And so I went. Northwestern is 10 minutes away from my parents' house in Evanston, Illinois. So I would just live at home and commute. And that's what I did. And then, through happenstance, I started, I originally wanted to be a sports reporter because I'm a huge sports nut.
And I talked to you about that before. You remind me of Bill Simmons. I told you that.
That's
Someone
very
who's
kind of you. Bill Simmons is fantastic.
ESPN. Well,
I grew up reading Rick Riley,
I,
the
yep,
Backstage Sports Illustrated in the 90s. That was sort
yep.
of, his sense of humor. There's a lot of sources for my sense of humor, but he was a part of it. And I quickly discovered that sports writing is not a very sustainable career. And honestly, now that we're 16 years past that point, I think that was the right decision. Um, and I decided to do business journalism because the hours seemed stable, the pay seemed above average with what journalism was going through in 2010. And I was fortunate enough to kind of lop on into that world. And I worked at Crane Chicago Business in Chicago for a
Oh yeah,
year, covering
big
commercial real
name.
estate as a reporter, as an intern reporter. Then I moved into trade media, which is a whole world that I didn't really know much about before working in it. Did that for about 6 years. And then it became pretty clear that I feel like I have more to offer than just reporting and writing and editing, really. Had more interest in broader business. And so I kind of made the move to work for a very small independent communications consulting firm in Chicago that worked with investment banks and financial advisors. And as more of like a project manager operator type thing, I got to learn a lot about
That word operator. We're going to hear more about that.
operator. Yeah, I got to learn a lot about running a business, consulting, how to price content work was a big thing I learned in that role. And then I end up moving into content marketing at a construction technology company, which I've been at for almost 7 years now. Started off kind of professionalizing this company's blog, but has since evolved to include everything under the sun in content these days, which, as you know, Bob, is like
There's a lot.
never ending and always evolving. We're now
It's
in
a
an era where
deep rabbit hole.
deep rabbit hole. It's a wild west, you could say. AI has flipped the table over.
We're going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk
Frank,
about that.
great chronology, and it does answer my question in full. Up until now, there's your professional journey, because you
Professional,
can weave
right?
in. Please don't hesitate to weave in the drumming, the guitar playing, your family, your kids, all that. Anywhere, anytime in this conversation, we have parallel careers. I'm just about 3 decades older than you, but
Sure.
I was a wannabe in the music business person, not a musician. But I first worked at Warner Brothers in RCA in New York. I thought I was going to be a music executive or entertainment
Right.
executive, but I was a good writer, and not to brag or anything. I'm just saying that was factual, and that was a practical skill, and that got me the job as a copywriter. And it was music industry, but it was marketing. And I have stayed in marketing my whole career. And I realized, yes, it pays the bills. And, copywriting, not always that glamorous or exciting, but it pays the bills. And it was 20 years my career before the internet. Once the internet obviously emerged, late 90s, it became what you're talking about,
Right.
content and social media. And I started my blog in 2004, and I'm still writing that blog. And that's partly my background why the minute I saw you. Again, you're from Franklin. I didn't say this at the beginning, but that's the town I grew up in. So right there, we got something in common. You're
Right.
living in Franklin. I was born in Franklin, back in the day, and my mother still lives there. I have the writing chops like you do. You got amazing writing chops.
Thank
I I identified that right away. And you're doing something. You're breaking new ground with the content that you're doing on your own, not for your day job. And
you. Sure.
I forgive if I don't ask you questions about your day job.
Oh,
It's
no,
your
hey,
it's your entrepreneurial thing that you're doing, and you just started 4 or 5 months ago. You're writing food reviews, basically
yeah,
restaurant reviews like no one else I've seen, certainly locally. And I compared you when we first talked to Bill Simmons because he was like called the Boston sports guy, and he started blogging when blogging was new. You're like the Franklin food guy, and and you're getting a reputation very quickly. You're building an audience. You're on Substack. I think you have two
yeah,
Substacks.
yeah.
You're all over social media. So yeah, I'm cutting to the chase, Frank. What started what you started like only 6 months ago or so? Tell us
Hey,
about that, and know that I got again many more follow-up questions, so you don't have to,
sure, I gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I never really, my I don't know, I have like maybe like undiagnosed ADD where my brain is always firing on
same. It's
ideas, right? And I
ADHD,
think
the
it stems
same.
a lot from I'm just a creator at my core. And like it started with music when I was a kid, writing drum parts or writing guitar riffs or playing in bands, right? It was like the need to create things is sort of the foundation. And that has just materialized in different ways as I've gotten older through writing and journalism and all that as well. But in terms of the food thing, I started a blog called Frankly Food in Franklin in May that was really born out of a very random stream of consciousness observation eating a plate of nachos at a restaurant in town.
Yeah, but no one, you see the way you describe, you're a great storyteller, and I
Thank
know I've been heaping the praise on you. It's not superficial. It's genuine because I read a ton. I am online all the time. I've worked with 500 plus clients. I've been in this business 40 plus years. There's very few to come around like you, Frank Kalman. I'm telling you, not a lot of people sit around eating a whatever of nachos and say, "I'm going to start a food blog," and it
well,
takes off
it
the
didn't
way
even,
yours has.
yeah, I mean, I wish I could say, oh yeah, I was eating nachos and I was like food blog. No, it was like there was more organicness to that, and that's not a word. So organicness, everybody at home, look that up. That's not a word, but it
Another
was
sign
more
of genius, by the way, Frank, making up words.
yeah, right. It was more like, we're at a restaurant with I have two kids, a 4-year-old and a 8-month-old at the time, and um, just eating nachos. And something hit me like this place, they knew how to layer the nachos, right? Which is like, again, my like Larry David brain is like, I'm focused on a place and how every nacho had toppings on it, every chip. And so I get home and I'm walking my dog, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna fire this takeoff into the local Facebook group in Franklin called All About Franklin, which has like 25,000 people in it. And I said something to the effect of like, places that don't layer their nachos properly are like baloney or something. I don't even remember the wording, right? And again, I am not birthing any food blog at this point. I am just like firing this takeoff as my dog is like pooping on the grass, probably. And I press send, and then I come back an hour or two later. It's got like 200 likes, and everybody is like weighing in. And I'm
Do you know
like,
how many people try though getting 200 likes and
I
can't,
just
and you
like,
just
and I don't, listen, I have a long history of social media flopping, right? This is not like I'm some genius who figured out social media. This is just like, I'm almost like out of body, like observing, like, why is this gaining traction? Like my random Thursday night musing of a nacho layering issue. And so it got me thinking like, oh, maybe this is a thing I can do where uh I start like a Substack because at this point I had already played with Substack for some other experimental
Yes, you have two. I know you have one
And I'm
other.
like, oh, maybe this is like a Substack, like a local food thing. Like where I go to restaurants, and it's not like I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go into these restaurants like I'm some culinary wizard. I'm just more like I like food and we happen to eat out a lot. Maybe I just like make this like a storytelling vessel.
You do dine out a lot. I can't
Do
keep
dine
up
out
with
a
you
lot. My wife and I
for
both work
different
from
reasons.
home. Uh so dining out is our way to feel connected with the real world.
Yep.
And we like to eat, and we would just, my wife and I met when we were both living in Chicago. It's a great food city. Dining out was just part of our culture. You go out,
Mm-hmm.
try new cuisines. And I kind of grew up in a very food centric household. So it's like dining out is not always the most frugal thing to do, and it's not always practical, but it's like it's our way to feel connected with the community.
Yes, but you're at the time of your life when people do go out to dinner, and because your wife's working, and like you say, you're home working yourself, and you get the two kids, and let's make this quick and fairly easy, and also be around the community, and you're new to the community, so that's how
Relatively,
you
yeah.
get outreach to them and get to know them. Again, as you tell the story, I'm realizing exactly where I saw you all about Franklin on Facebook. I'm not a Franklin resident anymore, but I read that group, and I can tell you it jumped out because it's different, and it was candid and transparent and had the sense of humor, and it's something I think people were looking for is opinions about all the different restaurants, because everyone goes out to eat, and you know uh, you're though in a small town, and you are quite opinionated, and for the most part, very favorably inclined towards all the restaurants you've been to. But there was, again, if I'm moving too fast, slow me down. But there was one that you went to that I think the only one, but it really blew up, where you weren't, quite giving it an A plus. I've
That's
never been there, but yeah, it's right near where I grew up. I grew up on Lewis Street near the old Fico's Bolodrome. I think that's right near where I
yeah,
grew up. That's a church now, Fico's
I bet.
Bolodrome.
Yeah.
You want to? Is it too early in this conversation to
Oh,
go right there?
yeah. So I mean, the big point I want to make is like I didn't like do like a risk analysis, like business plan for this. This was truly a experimental um undertaking, frankly, Food in Franklin. And for the first 4 or 5 weeks or so, again, it was a lot of me developing the voice, developing the style, learning about who the audience is in real time. And so, and then it came to a point where I went to a restaurant that I had been to before, that is relatively new to Franklin. And I kind of knew going in that like we didn't really care for it, the other visits we had been there in the past. So I kind of knew going in like what my feelings were in general, but this particular visit kind of put an exclamation point on it. And at that point, so I did write, yeah, it was a rant. I don't even know. Like it was very I'll say something like a phrase, this is a basketball phrase. I went hard in the paint, right? I don't know if your listeners understand that.
I do. That means if you're near the basket, you're being aggressive and trying to score and play a little
Yeah,
rough.
like
If
I didn't hold back. I said something like, "This restaurant would be a great place to eat in if I could DoorDash my food from somewhere else." That was sort of like the punchline, more or less. Um,
the lines you come up with, Frank. Again, I don't know if you've read Anthony Bourdain or all these
oh,
great New York Times food critics, but you're right up there with the language, man, describing food for a non-foodie.
we'll get into the writing mechanics later, but I think, as my wife will say, like these lines are like they're more me talking. Like these are lines that come out in the car ride on the way home that are like me just kind of like emptying the tank on my thoughts. And then I take note of the ones that are like, oh, that's an interesting way to put it. Um, I think in this case, this restaurant in particular, I came up with a real random line. I don't even know where it came from, but we were driving home. My daughter's in the back yelling about something. She's 4. And I said, that place is like, it's like a pinata that is so tantalizing on the outside. You can't wait to take the baseball bat to it. And then you finally crack it open and there's no candy. And that feeling of like, oh no, there's no candy. Like how it's like everything about the place, the vibe, the marketing, it's like, oh, brilliant. And then the food is the empty pinata. And you're like, oh, they're so close. And so again, back to your point, I reluctantly published it thinking it would just be kind of a whatever. And I was as surprised as anyone that it fired off. I think it was my biggest one-day subscription event. I think I had like 85 new subscribers
That
in
is
one
insane.
day.
On
Which
Substack.
on
Is
Substack,
that
I don't really know what's comparable because I'm not like
is that on Substack 85?
Substack
Yeah,
85
that's huge.
subscribers.
Substack is usually a slow
Yeah,
build.
and everyone was like piling into the comments on social. Created a lot of conversation. The owners of the restaurant chimed in with their PR hostage negotiation language, things you got to say. And I was like, I'm like watching at this point. Like, I did not think this was going to happen. And so I think that was a point that the lesson I learned from that for your listeners is like, you have to have conviction in content in 2026. You have to be fearless. You have to have a point of view. You have to have an opinion and be unafraid to say it as plainly as possible, because we live in this sort of risk averse, optimized era with content where everything is overly sanitized and safe. And I think that becomes noise. And ultimately, when you see somebody that has something to say that feels human and real, especially in a hyper local venue, I think that cuts through. That's my assessment.
It cut through big time, Frank. And I often share clips of my interviews, the podcast. You know how that goes.
Sure.
And what you just said was a big highlight, a perfect clip for me to share with my students, with, on LinkedIn. I don't know if your average reader on Facebook would get what you're saying, but yeah, there's so much noise, cacophony and noise out there with regard to content. Everyone's an author now. Everyone's a film director, a broadcaster, podcaster, and you need to be authentic and opinionated, and you need to be able to stand. You said your word conviction. Stand behind your opinions and have this thick skin. And if you want to be successful and if you want to be at all interesting, because everyone says, oh, that was a great restaurant, loved it, or don't go there again. They I don't know, they overcooked my whatever. You have a way of describing food. You have a sense of humor. You have consistency too, by the way, which is a biggie when I talk to my students, when I talk to clients, meaning you have kept at it and what is it? Play hard in the paint.
Go hard in the paint. Yeah.
Consistently, day in and day out. I mean, I'd want you as my starting center if I had a basketball team. Or the construction company, tech company that as you hired, they should lock you up, a 10-year contract, max, a max contract.
I'll send it along.
Because what you get going, if this is an indication what you do, it's very entrepreneurial. It's very courageous. It's very good writing just to read if you like writing. But I can see why everyone's glomming all over it. Has it surprised? I mean, it sounds like it surprised you a little bit, the success.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I started in May, I thought it would be just another one of my weird things I work on when I'm not working or parenting that would just like, I think one of the things I think a lot of fathers of young children will relate, like there's a lot of like boredom that comes with being a parent to young kids. It doesn't make sense because you're obviously overwhelmed and active. Your time is precious. but you when you spend most of your day talking to a 4-year-old, you need intellectual stimulation that's for you. And I think these are outlets, like frankly, food is an outlet for me to do something that feels creative. I mentioned at the beginning that I am just instinctually a creator. Um, I like to talk a lot, and so that satisfies that, but is also like something for me to work on that isn't, something I need to strive for and optimize. Like, where everything else in our society and our world is like, you need to optimize, you need to optimize, you need to do, and this is like, I'm just free form. This is a free form experiment. And so I am surprised by the success. And now we're at a point where I have a chunk of paid subscribers, and I'm getting to a point where I'm cooking up offering local sponsorship opportunities for other non-restaurant businesses in town because we built an audience
How can you not be
of
going in that direction, man?
nearly between all the platforms we're on, we have almost 5,500, 6,000 hyper local eyeballs. The Facebook group is approaching 4,000 folks on its own.
Holy
And
jeez.
so it's like, but here's the thing. It's like the goal is not, this is not a get rich quick. This is a, can you help me pay for these meals, which are
Yeah, yeah.
interestingly for a family, a young family that has cost constraints, like these are not cheap. Um,
No,
so
and what you just said, Frank, you and I both know this business of writing and being creative is far from get rich quick. It's pay maybe for the bills
hey,
slowly, one at a time.
that's something that is, sorry to cut
It's
you.
very few who can break through and achieve, that financial success as a creator.
And I listen, I'm not there at all yet, but I think one of the things creators, whether it's independent or professional, one of the things I really like to advocate is think of yourself as a business person. There's this culture of creatives that for decades have conditioned us to believe that if you are a creator or an artistic person, you're not allowed to be about money. You're not, the caricature of the struggling artist, right? Who can't feed themselves. Like that is like become like a source of pride. It was even that way when I was in journalism school. It was like the first day they're like, you're not going to make any money. And I'm like, why not? Uh,
But
you
and
know,
Frank, I love that. And I'm not old enough necessarily to be a dad, but close. Okay. And what I tell my kids who are, let's say, 10 years or so younger than you, what you just said, meaning money is so important. I am that artist, that creative person that has struggled off and on financially during my career
sure.
because I've followed my passion. I don't have the business sense that you have. You have both right brain, creative, left brain, whether you give yourself credit for that or not, business sense. You get it, and you're that operator that I am to a degree, but not to the degree you are, and I applaud you
Oh,
so much. And again, I told you, and I've told the audience tonight that I read a lot. I'm online a lot, and I sense you got something going on. I told you I reached out to a radio station in Boston where I know somebody. They should be talking to you. You should be more
yeah.
headlines and
I don't
and
know what
and
there is to offer. I'm just trying to be myself, right? I'm not trying to be anything any for anybody else or for any. I'm just, that the whole project with Frankly Food is it's really a case study in authenticity. It's not. I'm not. I don't know. It's just me being myself in the rawest possible format, and food just happens to be the vessel, right?
a good writer and talker like yourself, which are great skills in this AI day and age, they still are more important than ever. By the way, you know that. I know that. I tell
Sure.
my students that you can talk and write about anything if you got that talent, and you do, Frank. So you picked food, and it's a common denominator with everybody. And hyperlocal, it can be controversial if you are unfavorable. But frankly, your batting average is like 900 out of 1,000 favorable. You praise up and down most of the places you've been to. There was a bar pizza place. You if you want to name places, you can or not. Up to you. But I read that review, and it's on Union Street, I think. And I know Union Street. The Union Cafe isn't there like it used to be.
Yeah.
That's where I hung out back in the day. I still go to the Rome restaurant. We go to 45, which you reviewed recently. My mother's favorite restaurant in Medway. But do you want to talk about that bar pizza place or any other place in particular?
Yeah, well, I'll say right now, the Rome restaurant. I'm currently in the process of writing an extensive profile on the family that owns that restaurant. We've
The
had one.
Kalachi family.
Yep, we've had one
Yep.
sit down interview.
That's amazing. That's going to be so popular.
I'm going to the restaurant to meet with them a second time this coming Monday. So hopefully in September that'll be up. But really, like, the one thing reviewing restaurants, I don't really like that term. I think the reviews are more like they're core to what we're doing, but really my goal is to tell the stories behind the places. And ultimately, getting to know the owners of these establishments and learning their stories is my goal. I've done that once with a profile we did on a local bagel shop. And I'm going to be
Yes.
doing that with the family that's owned the Rome restaurant for almost 60 years or something like that.
What was the bagel shop? You can name, right?
Elizabeth's Bagels. It's
I
on
need to go there when I go to Franklin. My mom lives in Franklin.
Central Street or East Central Street, maybe. But and again, really the goal is like the food is the vessel. The food is like the magnet of why we're here. But it's really like the stories about the people, the experiences, and the community is the ultimate goal. And I think that's why hyperlocal works. Like, I've tried a couple different Substacks that have, for lack of a better phrase, struggled to focus, right? Or they're on large national topics. I think a lot of creators, when they start out, they want to be world famous, right? And so they try to be everything to everyone with their content. And I think what I'm learning is like hyperlocal is underserved, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't do any business analysis when I discovered this, but I kind of landed on by accident the idea that, oh, nobody else is writing about restaurants in Franklin and the 495 corridor. Nobody, zero. I mean, you might find a few stray folks, but nobody's doing it with the coverage and consistency that I could do it. And so there's an appetite where audiences are
No pun intended.
your content because they're part of the story, right? If you write about the Rome restaurant, they know the Rome restaurant. They went there last night. So, or like the Shed or Jimmy D's or Bar Pizza and Salad, these are all characters in a story that the readership knows because they've experienced it. It's not an abstraction to them. And so they feel like they're part of the story, which I think is why our open rates on emails are averaging around 65, 70%. We have a 4,000 member Facebook group and growing in a town of 35,000, right? It's because these people feel connected to what you're producing and they feel like they're part of the story because when they're done reading your piece, they can get their car keys and go right now. And so there's something special about that if I were advising other content creators who maybe overlooking hyperlocal to think about that, like maybe you live in a city or a town where there are beats that you could create content around that are underserved because they're not flashy or sexy because they're not national.
Well, hyperlocal, yes, what you just said, but also the big players and the big fish in the big ponds can learn something from you as well, because you are making so many best practice points with regard to marketing and content creation, storytelling, communication. You're talking about involving your audience and going there. Yeah, your audience is part of the story. Brands and businesses, they need to realize their customers are part of the story. You're talking about going behind the scenes. You're talking about multiple visits. You're talking about taking a lot of time. I know you do. You put a lot of thought into this. And you're also talking about ridiculously awesome marketing, Frank, because you're blanketing social media. That's you playing the paint hard, if that's the expression. You're blanketing social media. So you're getting the word out there very fast. and your day in and day out, the energy level, I'm probably not seeing, when you pooped out and tired and lying on the couch or something, but every time I see you and read you, and you got the energy, you got it all. And any brand or business who wants to market themselves, put content out there, use social media, they could learn a ton from you. Again, I'll go back to where your day job. That they're lucky to have you, and your journalism background. And you're right in the prime of your career. You really are.
Right.
So I can only imagine where this can go. Far is what I'm saying. If you wanted to, you might just be enjoying, this little escapade.
We'll see.
Can I ask you about AI?
Right.
We can go back to any of this, but in case we run out of time, because we both are good at talking, and I have, but this is more like 90% you, I hope, not me. But AI is changing everything in the writing industry, social media, business, just the average human being. They're freaking out. Is it going to replace jobs? Is it going to become impersonal? How's it going to affect us? Is it artificial, as in artificial intelligence, or is there an actual human behind it? I think what, got, again, my attention, besides just seeing you on Facebook, I've told you, I literally read from 11 p.m. to midnight on a Sunday night, lying in bed, your manifesto about going from writer to operator. I've been writing since high school, and that was Franklin High School, the old school in Franklin, before they tore that down. That the one there now is new, about 5 years ago. I was writing for the school newspaper. I wrote for the town newspaper, hyperlocal. I told you that. And I've been a writer, a creative director. I write the blog. You had a fantastic manifesto that I shared with my class at Northeastern University, and I'm going to be sharing with other bodies of students this fall, other classrooms. Can you talk a little bit about AI and how you've embraced it, and why it's important to people, and how it does not replace the human behind the subject matter, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I think to preface this whole conversation, one thing I discovered very early in my career in journalism is that writing isn't the job. And I'd argue that, like, in journalism and news, it's a core function of the job, but the writing is really the vessel for the real value of what a reporter does, which is find out information, synthesize it, and present it in a way to the public that is fair and accurate, right? And so the writing is ultimately, again, I'll use this word vessel to present and communicate what inside journalism we would call reporting, which is on the ground interviews, fact gathering, source synthesis, and gathering, going to the courthouse, right? One of the first things I did at Crane Chicago Business when I covered commercial real estate, I would physically go to a courthouse in downtown Chicago, and I would pull foreclosure lawsuits. This was 2011, so the fallout of the real estate.
Oh, yeah.
Commercial real estate crash.
Yep.
And you thumb through the lawsuits. I would put like dollars in a machine to make copies of them. And I would walk back to the newsroom in downtown Chicago, and we would write news stories based off them. 90% of the work happens before you sit at your computer and start typing. And so that was like something that I really globbed onto, is like all the work and all the value. It's not because I'm a genius with the turn of phrase. It's because my reporting is so good that the news story writes itself. You're just typing it out. Yep. And so I just always carried that throughout my career. And then when AI came along, it's like, oh, okay. Now I have another tool that can help streamline that execution layer. So I come with all the sourcing, I come with all the insights, I come with all the interviews, and now all I'm doing with AI is I'm using it to help synthesize and get me to the points on the journey that I would have done before, just a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. And so is AI like writing for me? Sometimes, but it's not like AI can't taste a cheeseburger, it can't taste nachos, it can't go to a restaurant, right?
Doesn't have your personality.
Have my opinions. It doesn't have my and I'm also in a very privileged position, Bob, where I had almost 16 years of professional experience analog before AI came along. I even started in
Right.
journalism when social media was pretty primitive.
Yes.
So, like,
Yes.
Twitter was like, I remember sitting in newsrooms in 2011 where old time reporters on the desks next to me were getting scooped by people on Twitter and they didn't know how to process that. They're still writing out their story thinking they're going to hit the next day's cycle. And the news is happening right on Twitter. And I watched everybody around me process that in real time, that change. And so AI is very similar where
Yes.
have a lot of people who are very connected to the writing part of the job. And again, I think that goes back to just generations of generations that have
Of course.
romanticized the writing, but have kind of overlooked what goes into the writing, right? A famous person I always like to reference here is Hunter S. Thompson. Have you ever read Fear and
Of course. Yeah. Fear and Loathing.
Nobody else, I don't care how good of a writer you think you are, nobody else could have written that book. Zero. Hunter S. Thompson was one of one person. His talent was he was a good writer, but he was a unique individual that understand how to tell stories differently from everybody else.
Fr- Yes, Frank, if you need ever, you're not going to, but if you ever need a reference, I will corroborate exactly what you just said. And again, I compared you to Bill Simmons. I'll compare you to Hunter S. Thompson of, you're the Hunter S. Thompson of Franklin
Well, that's
food
very
writing. And what I mean by that is it's so many different variables that go into the end result. And you're making the point better than me. You're articulating it better than me. But this is why I jumped all over you when I first saw your work. I reached out to you quickly. I told people about you. You're if others could do it, they'd be doing it, Frank. Okay,
well,
you're putting in the hard work.
not special. Like I just stumbled onto it and it wasn't like I had a master plan with the food thing. I stumbled onto it. I found an audience almost by accident and I'm just leaning in, I guess.
But your process could be taught.
Yes,
So we
perhaps.
we talk about AI. I'm a college professor, three different schools: Suffolk, Mass College of Pharmacy, in Northeastern. You know, we saw AI coming. 3, 4, 5 years ago. AI was considered cheating, if you will. I'm speaking loosely.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden, we're teaching them a little bit how to use AI, and now we're requiring AI, and we're changing, how we teach because of AI, and maybe we're using AI a little bit too, if not a lot. It's embracing technology. It's embracing change, and it's looking forward. And again, people need to be those in business, those who depend on earning a livelihood in the prime of their career, like yourself. If it has anything to do with knowledge work, we need to embrace these tools and not resist them because, like the internet, like I always use the argument: what about the phone, the TV, electricity? These were changes, and some people may have resisted them or not liked them. They like things the old way, but you know, they're not going to go anywhere soon. They're not,
Right. AI,
we're not going backwards.
yeah, you're right. I think the best way to think about AI is like AI covers and helps me in all the areas that I am not particularly skilled in. If, for example, like I can bring the story, I have as you mentioned, the storytelling construct, that skill is built up. But what I can't do is when I notice, for example, that a certain topic in a Frankly Food and Franklin Facebook group is sort of causing a stir, right? Um, I can turn around and I can design a themed t-shirt based on
Oh,
the topic.
as you
And
have.
I can set up a t-shirt sale campaign around that topic within an hour, right? I'm not making any money doing this, but like, for example, this is more audience engagement, right? So now you have a story that you've published based on your reporting and experience, and the audience is reacting publicly on social media, and you're getting feedback. And so you can take that feedback and say, oh, wow, I didn't think this story, people are reacting like this is data for me. I wrote a story, or I had a kerfluffle about lobster, right? You're
Oh, yeah. Wait, is that out today?
no, 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 not out yet.
The big
Technically
article.
tomorrow, August
I
8th.
think it's today.
It's
No,
tomorrow.
no. Oh,
But
you're right. It's tomorrow. It's Friday.
point of the story is like AI in that moment allowed me to take action on audience feedback and say, oh, it'd be funny if I made a t-shirt about lobster and stood up a quick site to sell these t-shirts. And listen, nobody bought the t-shirts, or maybe one person did. But the point there is like, you can act on things that otherwise you would not have been able, because think of what I would have had to happen. Oh, the audience is responding to an article about lobster. I'm going to hire a graphic designer to make me a t-shirt logo about lobster. That's what, maybe a month, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. If the designer's really fast, maybe it's a couple days. Now I got to go find t-shirt inventory, and I
And
got
I've
to,
been there, done that like
just
a
like,
hundred times.
yeah, I mean, these are things. Again, if you are in the market for professional designers, you should go hire them. I'm not saying AI is replacing them, but in my particular situation, I'm running a food blog off my kitchen table as a side gig. I have no money to put into this business. I don't have a marketing budget, but I do have a $20 Gemini subscription where I can create a proof of concept of an image to put on a t-shirt, and I could turn around and test selling that to my audience. And you know what? If nobody buys it, what did it cost me? Zero.
Yep. Yeah,
I
it
did it,
enables
keep going.
it enables things, it accelerates things, it enhances. We could go on about that. I just wanted to make
Sure.
sure I
No,
cover a breadth
yeah.
of topics here, but very nicely explained. And again, I'm still in the business of marketing. I teach marketing. There's a time and place and people for certain things, which we do, and now AI is augmenting that, or in some cases replacing that, but enabling people that couldn't have afforded maybe a designer in the past or a writer. Now they can, like you say, they can use AI, and or writers and designers, they too can use AI. It's pretty much everybody's using AI now in business and creative more and more. Uh, in one way or another. I mean, that's a fact, and obviously is going to be reality uh, going forward. I want to ask you about the lobster while we were talking about
Sure.
that. Then I want to end, because we do have to watch the clock. I
Sure.
want to end with a couple questions, more social media marketing for my
Yeah.
students. But tell me about the lobster, because I think it's coming out tomorrow. We both had
Yeah.
forgotten. You've been talking about lobster all summer. You have a theory or a conspiracy theory. One man.
This, maybe.
I've heard your theory before, and I tend to agree with you. Can you tell us about what you think about lobster? And
Yeah. Oh, I think lobster's a huge scam. Uh,
I love that. I love that.
Biggest culinary scam. I mean, it's essentially a bottom feeder arthropod. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. That has over centuries sort of become this marketed delicacy.
Delicacy,
That's
yeah.
a fair way to put it, especially in the Northeast where you and I are based. I think lobster is fine, right? It's fine. Like, I think lobster is fine the way chicken salad is fine. I wouldn't pay $40 for a chicken salad sandwich, because
It's insane what lobster
yeah,
rolls go
I
for.
have, again, and this is an example of why did I choose this? Why did I choose this topic? I live in the Northeast. I'm a transplant, right? So from like an audience standpoint, you have to understand you're kind of like taking a shot at something that people hold near and dear to their hearts. I can say it because I'm not from here and I have a particular opinion based on where I'm from. I'm like the outsider's perspective. And I think it's an example of having conviction about a topic that is relevant for your audience that maybe, they can disagree with. I have kind of a construct or a founding ethos is like, I really won't publish anything that a reasonable person can't disagree with, because
Nice
that's how you
quote.
create that's how you create the second, third layer storytelling, right? It's called tension. In journalism, your professor always said, if a story doesn't have tension, then you don't
Yep.
have a story, right? Think of all the TV shows, the movies, books you read. There's a core tension that makes it
Conflict.
the conflict. It makes it why we watch it, right? And so
Yes.
I'm not artificially applying that, but I'm being conscientious that that is something that I could deploy. This is my genuine opinion about lobster. I've only after the fact recognized that this is the tension, this is the conflict of the larger story of Frankly Food and Franklin that I am going to try and get my audience to participate in. And so that's the back and forth that if it creates conversation, it creates dialogue, it creates interest, it creates conversation.
And what you've been focusing on in your writing is the price of lobster rolls. And
The price.
who can't agree with you, except obviously those who have all the money in the world and don't care how much they cost. But people like me can't eat lobster rolls like they used to, because I can't afford, and I'm not going, whether I could or not, I'm not spending over like $30 for a lobster roll. I remember the old McDonald's lobster rolls. I don't think they have them anymore, for like $15, $20. Market Basket has them for like $10
Right.
for a couple little ones.
And
I'll
so
spend $20 maybe.
like, there's a lot of opinions about this. And again,
It's a
it's not
hot
I don't
topic.
see it as my job as a creator to have the declarative final say, but look at the conversation it can generate among people who actually disagree with me. Like, you know what, Frank, I don't like this story. I disagree with you, but I do think we should talk more about what's going on with lobster, and why can't the common New Englander eat lobster? Why is it listed? Why can't we have, why is there a $55 lobster roll on the Cape? Like,
Is it a go?
there,
I interrupt.
there can be. I mean, I've heard anecdotally that some Cape spots are charging that much. So now the conversation is, why is lobster expensive? And then we're learning a whole new thing here. Oh, there's different sourced lobster. There's frozen lobster. There's
Yeah, I've seen that
there's
discussion.
what are the economics? Like, I put this out there and I have people writing me, hey, Frank, my cousin's a lobsterman and he says his expenses are going up because of this, this, this. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, there's more dialogue happening in the consumer space now because we're talking about it. And so it's
Who
not, I don't see it as my job. Like, everyone should agree with me. It's like, I've had this observation. It seems off to me. Let's put it out there and let's talk about it.
what you're saying, I hope, in this podcast, I hope your readers hear or see somehow, some way. Maybe that's up to me in terms of marketing, or you in terms of marketing, or whether or not you care. I don't know about them hearing your perspectives, the context. One more quick question about lobster: is it a fact that it costs them that much, or are they taking advantage? These
I don't know.
restaurants? You don't know.
This is like, it's part of the expedition of me putting the idea out there is, what are the different perspectives? I would love for restaurants to weigh in and be like, hey, listen, like, this is why, it's just I'm putting the question out there. There
Yep.
are no wrong answers. It's more about, I want to build more transparency and trust in the food community, for lack of a better way to put it, because I think I want food to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible.
And think about what you just said. It should be.
Right.
And that can include lobster. I mean, why does it have to be haves and have-nots?
If I go, I could go to 3 different restaurants within a 10-mile radius of my house, get 3 different lobster rolls, all priced 3 different ways.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, those who disagree with you would say that you could say the same about steak or
you could say it about anything. And so again,
cars.
To bring this back to a marketing audience, I'm trying to come up with content and stories that will engage readers in a way that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have been engaged before. And so I do have a personal opinion about lobster. Ultimately, the bigger picture is, oh, as an outsider, has anyone ever asked this question? Or have we just all accepted it as New Englanders?
This topic has come up. I've brought it up. I haven't investigated it though, like you are. I've
I
always
don't know
wondered
if I've
what.
investigated it, but I'm really like deploying. And it's funny, you put the ideas out there and then you start getting Facebook messages. I've gotten like people screenshotting or taking pictures of like, I'm on the Cape, look what they're charging here.
I
And
sent
now
you a
it's,
picture of a
yeah,
lobster. I
yes.
sent you a
And now,
sign.
to me, this is part of the story now because now it's compounding over time and over different pieces of content. And so just like a good TV show, everyone's following along in this like expedition,
Boom.
right?
Yes, Frank. Good way of almost winding things down. Okay,
Sure.
everyone is following this story, and the story you're behind. You're the storyteller. What would you say to clients or students, or even your general public audience with regard to what you're doing? Why is it working? Have you figured that out? I think we've talked about some of the reasons why it's working. Why are people interested in what you're writing, and what can others learn from your process, your style?
Uh, I think it would be pretty presumptuous for me to declare why it's working, right? I think the big thing is like just keep going, keep creating and keep observing. And you know, we're talking about Frankly Food in Franklin today because it's successful. But what you're not talking about are the 15 other blog ideas that died on the vine that came before it. And there are a whole host of reasons they probably failed. So I would just say, just keep going. If you're a creator and you have instinctual appetite for writing, filmmaking, poetry, and you're not globbing on, it's not catching, just keep going. Keep going, keep observing. That's what I'd say.
I want your readers to see this because I think some of those who oppose your views think you are that center playing hard and aggressive and maybe even um, rough and tumble, and not realizing you are a humble guy and you're just a regular guy, man, and you're just putting things out there. And I don't know if everybody knows that. I sense that um, from talking to you and the first time, and I really know that now, Frank. I mean, you're just doing, following your passion, following your ambitions, and like you say, we have to pick ourselves back up more times when we fall down, and you can't succeed without failures,
No.
and and this may not, if you don't mind me saying so, not end up being a success. This could fail,
Okay.
but what have you learned from it? And where can you go from here? And what have you taught other people like myself, like the probably 100 students I'll be talking to this fall, 5 different classes. I already talked to 15 students, graduate students, about your manifesto. I mean,
Sure.
those who argue with you about lobster don't even know about your AI manifesto, which I thought was ingenious.
Sure.
And
Thank
I
you.
want you to talk about that to my college
Sure.
students because they're learning AI and they're learning writing and they're learning business. And you are a master at all of that. Whether or not you're a master of lobster and food remains to be seen or heard or confirmed. But I will confirm you as the master of marketing, social media, AI, business.
Well,
You keep keeping on, man.
I'll try. It's all I know how to do, I guess, at this point. Like, it's very bizarre to sit here and receive praise
Take
when
it.
when you know it's all a sandbox to me. AI, it's like it's a sandbox. It makes failure less costly in some ways.
But you are putting in the effort. I know
Yeah,
as
you have
someone
to
who
have an
does.
angle. You have to have like I would definitely say to any student, like you can't outsource everything. Like you have to bring something to the table.
I know what it takes to do
Yeah.
what you were doing. And whenever I've asked you something, whenever I've emailed you something, you've gotten back to me. I see you responding to all your audience members.
I try, yeah.
That is not everybody. Okay. You are a hard worker. You are a hustler. You have all the ingredients. And Frank,
Yeah.
you know that, and I know that.
Put in the time. That's a big misconception with AI, is that it's you don't have to work hard anymore, or you don't have to put in effort. Like, no, that's totally backwards. You have to. You just have more possibilities that can come from your effort. Like, I've never worked harder than I have the past 3 years, because I'm managing a day job. I have Frankly Food in Franklin. I have other endeavors. I play music with AI. I have a music project that I mess around with AI with my guitar playing. Like, I have so many more irons in the fire because AI has totally eliminated barriers that otherwise would have made the thought of pursuing some of these projects just totally impossible, right? It's given somebody who objectively does not have free time, as a father of 2 kids under 4, and I have a very anxious, rambunctious dog too, the ability to, from 4:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. when my kids wake up, that's when I work and do this stuff.
You get up freaking early, man. You work so hard.
That's more of a circadian rhythm problem that anyone who has young kids understands. I go to bed early because I'm pooped.
Well, you should be at the end of such a hard working day. Frank, I can't tell you how impressed I am, and I know my audience members will be. I can't say they're Franklin foodies. My podcast goes out all over the world. I'm one of those, like you said, who wanted to be, worldwide.
And listen, don't let my insight about hyperlocal preclude anybody from thinking they can't think bigger. It's just, this is the lesson I've happened to learn on this particular project.
No, and that lesson, the lessons to me are transferable to pretty much anything that is being done today in marketing, social media, AI, communications, verbally, how you communicate, personality. You mentioned transparency so many times. Transparency is so important to trust, and trust is so important to friendships and business. And that comes up daily in our relationships. We know, with family, with friends, with clients, with colleagues. Trust is critical. And, anyone who talks to you, you are nothing but an open book. And that's what you want in people, because then you get to know them, and you like them, you trust them, you do business with them. Frank, I'm going to end it now. I'm going to say, I always say you are a rock star. I thought of this just a minute ago. B-52 is one of my favorite groups. They have Rock Lobster as a song. You are a rock lobster star.
That's a t-shirt. Let's make a t-shirt.
Frank is a rock lobster star. Everybody pay attention to Frank. Look up Frank. Frank, do you want to tell people where to find you on your Substack and all of that?
The website is franklyfoodinfranklin.com if you're into food or want to explore, now that we've talked about this project for an hour. But I can also be found, frankakalman.com is where that operator manifesto exists. And then, I'm on Instagram. I'm on the socials. I'm not good at the CTA stuff. It's just like, figure it out.
Calls to action, CTA, for those who don't know. Anything you didn't say, we talked for over an hour. That's up there with one of my longer podcasts. Anything you didn't say, though, did I give you enough opportunity?
I probably talked too much. No, just, yeah. I'm curious to see how this comes out.
It's going to come out ridiculously awesome. Riverside is how we've recorded it, and I will put it up on Podbean, and then it goes everywhere, audio, and I'll put the video up on YouTube and clips. Riverside will talk about AI. It'll break this up into all the highlights. 95% of them are you, me, maybe just the introduction. And it's all about you, Frank. I'm so impressed. I got to meet in person someday, maybe at the Rome or some other restaurant. But I'm serious. You got it all going on. Keep up the great work, and I thank you so much. And for those of you listening and watching, that's Frank Kalman, and he's food critic, restaurant reviewer, storyteller, content manager, strategist, creator, writer, great guy all around, musician. You probably a million other things, father, things that you do, husband, friend, et cetera, neighbor. Look him up, Frank Kalman, and keep listening and watching Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. This has been episode 213 of Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, and we will talk to you again soon.